Good afternoon, everyone. This is LadyDragon speaking. We continue our day with a keynote of CES. It's Sunday, January 26th. It's 1:15 p.m. Now it's going to be Accenture. It's going to come and talk. They always have interesting things to say. So let's listen.
Please welcome the president of the Consumer Technology Association, Kinsey Fabrizio.
Good afternoon and welcome to CES 2025. As you all in this room know, CES brings together the products and services driving the tech trends and the innovators whose vision is reinventing the world around us. That's why I am so thrilled to welcome Accenture, an innovation-led company and longtime participant at CES. Accenture helps leaders reinvent themselves, using emerging tech to be more efficient and create a great customer experiences, and serves as a trusted partner to more than 9,000 clients in more than 120 countries. And under Chair and CEO Julie Sweet, the company has reached new heights, delivering innovation and transformation on a global scale through cutting-edge solutions in AI, cloud, computing, sustainability, and digital transformation. In addition to advising clients, Accenture has been rapidly reinventing itself too, using technology, data, and AI. Julie has been recognized as one of Time's 100 most influential people and one of Fortune's most powerful women in business. As AI applications expand, she served as a trusted advisor, helping businesses use AI and data to power their own reinvention, and a leading voice urging companies to develop and use AI responsibly. She'll be joined on stage by Julia Borston, CNBC senior media and tech correspondent, who covers both topics with a focus on tech innovation. Julia is also the author of the best-selling book, When Women Lead, and a creator of CNBC's Disruptor 50 list of companies transforming our economy. Please help me and welcome Julie and Julia to the stage.
And thank you to the CTA and CES for having us here. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge something that I know is on a lot of our minds, which are these devastating fires in the Los Angeles area, my hometown. And I just hope that technology can be part of the solution for rebuilding and also preventing this kind of tragedy from happening again. So
yeah, it's so hard. We were just talking about this last backstage, because my family is also, I grew up in Southern California. My sister's still there. My brother's still there. I was up like you, like half the night. Like I was like, what if you fall asleep and you need to evacuate? I mean, it's just so hard. And when you see the devastation, it's terrible. So really, our prayers are with everyone.
Yes, well, just wanted to acknowledge that. Before we talk about some very exciting and very positive and optimistic news, and you had a number of different headlines out of CES. You launched your 12 industry agent solutions to help accelerate AI. Walk us through what this news means. The AI refinery. What is an AI refinery?
Like, I like to think of it really simply. So just think about all of us, we each have a brain. And in our brain, they work kind of the same way, right? They've got the same structure. And then we learn. Right? So if you think about what's happening today in companies, every company I work with is doing a lot of pilots. Like, they've got a million things going on. And most of the CEOs I talk to are like, okay, this is hard. It's not really giving me the value. And a big step that companies have not not so much miss, but now need to move to because they were really excited, is how do they create a brain that has the structure that works whether you're in the US or you're in Europe, wherever you are in the company, and then allows this AI to learn and change your company. And what people are missing is the structure and the ease of then being able to plug in. And so what we did is we created the brain. And that brain has, think of it as a way of like you're onboarding a new model. You want to use a model, it comes in, it gets certified, it goes out. All of your people don't ever have to know about that. But you know, as CEO, it's safe. It has these agents that everyone's talking about that are all trained in your data, and they will work with everything. And all of this works with all of your technology. So it was built on NVIDIA technology as part of the brain. And Accenture and NVIDIA have a complete, everything must be interoperable. So you're not now creating some new tech debt. But it's allowing you to have the structure so that you can do the holy grail that every CEO complains about. How do I scale? How do I make it easy for my people? And how do I focus on how to use it as opposed to the very, very complex landscape that everyone's trying to learn about it, and we try to make that simple for every organization. So we're really excited. It was something that we've been developing based on all of the work and all of our work with all of our partners as to how do we help our partners and our clients get to value faster.
So AI Refinery is sort of the platform, and then these industry agent solutions are tools that will help each individual company build their agents faster, more efficiently, but they're still customizing them to their own data set and their own corporate information.
Absolutely. So if you think about Accenture, right, we're a $65 billion company. We work across every industry. We work with the leaders in every industry. And what we've done is we've said, well, we have this new great technology, but rather than have each of our clients have to make up every single part of it, we're industry experts. We're functional experts. We know the processes. If you're a refinery in the energy, if you're doing claims or insurance. And so we've taken all of our knowledge and said, here's your starter kit. Now take the starter kit and make it your own. And using that brain, that AI refinery, we then tie it to your internal data, to your external data, and now you've been supercharged, not just with the technology, but with your own data, and you're gonna go a lot faster because you get to leverage all of our expertise.
And so give me an example of one of these AI agent solutions and how it might work for a particular industry. I mean, you mentioned oil refinery, but walk us sort of through how it might work.
So I'll use Accenture because, as always, right, we try to do this to ourselves. And one of my favorite and first examples where we used an agent at scale was in marketing. Now, as you might imagine, at Accenture, with 700,000 people, we like to talk and we like to come up with new thought leadership, right? So starting a couple of years ago, we got all of that cleaned up so we know what's happening any place in our company. But when we want to put out a new thought leadership piece, it had a lot of steps, right? You had somebody who'd go out into the market and they'd look at what are our competitors saying. You'd say, look at what are our ecosystem partners saying. Look at what our clients are saying. Then there was quality reviews, and someone has to look at, hey, is this new, or have we said it someplace? We're really big, right? All of those were tied to people, and sure, we use technology to do search and that, but that was all. Now today, I've got that creative idea. I want to make a campaign out of it, and literally in minutes, as that person who I want to sit down and write something, I have a digital agent who's gone and looked at everything that's being said externally by the areas that I want, that tells me everything that I already have so I don't write something new. And then, and this is one of my favorite parts, when I start writing, it judges me. It tells me, hey, that's not very differentiated from what the competitors have said. Or that has absolutely no difference than that other asset. And then as I write it, I get instant feedback, right? This used to be people and time. It literally would take weeks. And now the first thing takes minutes, and we're cutting about half of the time from the creative idea to getting it into the market.
So massive efficiency and more accuracy.
Much better quality. And I can't afford to have every single person be the absolute best editor, to be the absolute best person who understands what's going on. And what this allows me to do is the quality is, we'd get there in the end, but we're getting there, I call it first time right, because we're getting the highest quality inputs early in the process. Now, we had to massively change how we work. And when we go back to think about that brain, right, and that we're learning, the other thing we've had to do is change the structure of how we operate the company. Because all of that used to be a sequential process, and then you'd have these loops. Now, we had to sit back and say, well, what's the new creative process when this is happening? And when do we have the human in the loop? And how do we now actually get people to change the way they do it? And not, by the way, go check themselves, right? Because you have to build trust. And one of the most important things, we just put out our tech vision that we talk a lot about is trust. Because if you have this great technology and people don't use it, first of all, it won't learn, so it won't get better and it won't create value. But it's also there's no return on your investment.
So you just segued to my next question, which is about this concept of trust. I mean, in your Accenture Technology Vision Report, it's the 25th annual one, which is kind of amazing if you think about how much the technology world has changed in the past 2.5 decades. But this idea of trust is really essential to the future of AI. But it's not just trust of people believing that it's going to work. Walk us through sort of the nuances of that and how companies here should be thinking about building that trust.
It's such an important question, and I think part of what's been missing is there's two dimensions to the trust. One dimension, as you said, is does it actually work, right? And that trust comes from using it, and then as you use it, by the way, it doesn't work at the beginning, it has to learn in that. And so there's a defined way to building that trust, right? If you get people to learn it, et cetera, they can see that it works. Now, you have to have change management, you have to build it in, but that's in some ways the easiest part of trust. It's an important step, but it's the emotional side of trust that is equally important. And that's the trust where it says, wait a minute, is this gonna take my job? Right? What's the future going to look like, right? Is it going to hurt parts of our business? It's the part that people get emotionally worried about. Are my kids going to have a job? I mean, I travel and talk to people all over the world, and a lot of times in those casual conversations when I'm with companies, those are the things they kind of ask me on the side. Julie, what should my kids study, right? And that affects whether you're using it and embracing it. And so one of the things that we do is really recommend, and I talk to a lot of CEOs and CHROs as you're thinking it, is that it's important as you think about change and adoption that you recognize both components. One is about learning and practice. The other, emotional, is about transparency. It's about empathy, right? It's very much about being direct as well. If you get those two pieces right, you will accelerate your ability to really reinvent what you're doing. And instead of it sort of being a pull, right, you really open up. And I think people want this. I mean, we're all using it. I was cracking up because my 5th grade niece just sent all these AI avatars of our whole family. She's in 5th grade. And she sent it on her grandmother's phone. And of course, the grandmother's thinking this is great. This is a part of our life. It's not like you go to work and you say, well, I don't want AI there. I only want it at home. But it's incumbent on us as leaders to actually bring people along that journey. And at Accenture, we have leadership essentials, how, this is what it takes to be a leader. And one of the most important is the courage to change and the ability to bring people along the journey. Both are important. You have to invest as a company and a leader. You owe it to your people to work on that piece. Leader. And one of the most important is the courage to change and the ability to bring people along the journey. Both are important. You have to invest as a company and a leader. You owe it to your people to work on that piece.
So that leads directly to this question of the workforce and those concerns you hear from people all over the world. Is this AI going to be taking my jobs? And if it's not going to be taking someone's job, what do they need to do to make sure that they're still contributing? And is what they do have to be different, have to be evolved? And so one thing I think is so interesting about Accenture is as you are innovating and disrupting your own business and deploying all these technologies on your own business, you're advising companies across every single different sector on how to do the same. What are the workforce implications for your business, but also across industries?
If you're only to remember one thing about workforce implications, and again, I'm always the bias is like on being practical, is AI changes the skills that your leaders need. So I'm going to start with leaders. And what I mean by that is if AI can reinvent like how you're going to market or how you're running finance, then everything you know about process and how to, you have to actually understand, well, what can the technology do in order to now reinvent it? Most of us, almost all of us, didn't grow up with something called Gen AI or agentic architecture. So now, skill is you must understand this technology. That's a skill. And so you have to look at all of the job descriptions and say, of the skills they need, this is one of those skills. And then you have to say, and how are they going to get it, right? We've been talking about, and one of my most passionate things is around skills-based human resources. So about 5 years ago, we built our own database of all of our skills. So I have 780,000 people, and I have all of their skills in a database. I can actually run an algorithm to say, hey, I need some more cloud people who could be upskilled in 20 hours, right? But why do I care so much about it? Is it goes back to how are we going to invest in our people to bring them along the journey? If you don't understand, first of all, what skills are needed to do the job, and then how they're changing it, you won't be able to give them the education and training to allow them to do it, which means you won't get the value, but it also means they can't rise to the occasion. And so we're doing that right now. The first thing we did when Gen AI hit about 2 years earlier, we were already experimenting. The very first thing we did was we went to our technology, all of our main roles, and we said, which of the roles are affected in the different skills, and what are the brand new roles, like prompt engineering didn't exist, right? And now we're systematically looking at every role at Accenture and saying, what are the skills, and then how are we going to give it to them?
But given that there are these additional efficiencies, greater accuracy without having humans double-checking things, will we see fundamentally that you need fewer people to do each job? Is that what it's going to come down to? Not just in your industry, but in all these other industries as well. Will we have one paralegal be able to do the work of 20 paralegals? Are workforce reductions inevitable?
Absolutely. Let's just be clear. Right? AI does things that we have people. Mostly it's tasks, though. One of the biggest complaints I actually have is that CEOs will say, I'm using all this AI and I don't have less people. Right? And that's because they haven't reimagined the work. They've just taken some of the tasks.
But do you think they will end up doing mass layoffs? I mean, what is the...
No, the reason I don't think they'll end up doing mass layoffs, so will there be a reduction? Yes, there should be. This goes back to skills and training, but it opens up all these new opportunities for the company. And so that's where you have to get the balance, right? It's every stage of technology. Think about basic automation. Back in 2015, we put out our first platform called MyWizard. We used to have tens of thousands of people doing testing. And that platform automated most of them away. We upskilled them, and they're doing different things, right? We've also have new businesses we didn't have in 2015. So you can't stop. Each wave of technology can't stop. The question is, do you have the ability to use the technology to build the new businesses, and do you have the ability to reskill? But not everybody's going to be reskilled. Right? We know that. That's why public and private partnerships are so important. That's why we have to think about K through 12 education. We have to think about college education. And we as companies need to be able to invest. We launched a business last year called LearnVantage, which provides upskilling. We spend about $1.1 billion a year on it today, and a lot of our clients, once this AI hit, were really asking us to help them. So we launched the business. I viewed that as much about my purpose to deliver on the promise of technology and human ingenuity, because we have to focus as companies now on the human ingenuity part. But anyone that said, like, of course AI is going to reduce some jobs. And now the idea is, and what are they going to create? There are jobs that don't exist, but there's also entirely new business models that can do hyper-personalization, for example, that opens a whole new way of working. We're working with clients now where the idea is at scale, how to be able to interact with a product, create a whole campaign for a client to draw something new. Those are new skills for marketing, right? They're not going to do the same repetitive stuff, but now they're interacting differently, right? We're working, if you think about some of the stuff we're doing, like in the energy piece, on the one hand, we're driving efficiencies. Those same companies are then turning and using that money to invest in doing more in renewables. And they're taking people that they used to take more time in the refinery doing the turnaround, and now they're saying, okay, now we want you to come over here, and we're training, right? It goes back to being quite intentional and strategic about your talent.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems like we know where some of these jobs will be lost, but all the future jobs that will be created, those are maybe in industries we're just starting to see emerge. Since I'm asking you about all the negative potential implications of technologies like AI, I want to talk about security. Cybersecurity, data privacy, intellectual property security. How should the companies here, and how do you advise your clients to think about security in a different way, given just how much data is being collected and deployed through AI?
Well, first of all, AI is one of the best tools to make us all more secure. And, that's one of the most important things to understand is that a lot of incidents around security come from people making mistakes. Right? Comes from human error. Still, it's the #1 cause, right? AI is actually going to help protect data. It's going to protect the enterprise. And that's probably the most important, thing to walk away from on security is the question that I tell CEOs to ask is, how am I using the AI to now be more secure? And the idea of, digital, the internet, all of that, it's been expanding. That risk has been expanding. The biggest thing that's changed with the advent of accessible AI in this way is now we have much better tools than we did 2 years ago to help protect it.
And do you think we'll see AI regulation?
I hope so.
And what kind of AI regulation would you like to see, and what type of regulation do you think could be detrimental?
Well, I think, for example, in the US, we've taken a very much of a perspective of innovation first, right? So how do you do the innovative while doing the safeguards? Why do I say I hope so? Because there's certain things like around data privacy where you want consistency, which enables to the innovation, right? So no one, if you, we're the partners with every ecosystem partner, right? I don't know a single ecosystem partner who says there should be no regulation. In fact, what they ask for is consistent regulation. So in the US, that means let's not have something different in every state.
A patchwork is always a nightmare,
right? But also as global companies, let's try to be as interoperable as possible so that you're not spending lots of money complying with different regulations which are different but not in kind, like not really in kind, right? So we think regulation is really important, and the principle is balancing innovation with regulation and protection.
One of the most exciting things I've seen here at CS are these autonomous robots, and I know you have a big partnership. Among your many announcements here, your partnership with NVIDIA and Kion Group to create these new AI-powered digital twins, which aim to really transform warehouses. For those of us here who haven't gotten to see them in action or seen this announcement yet, walk us through what this means and why you think this is so meaningful.
Well, so there's two things to remember. 50% and physical AI. So we're created a warehouse solution with Keon and NVIDIA. And so think about most warehouses today, right, still have lots of people, forklifts, you're running around. And we believe this solution will reduce manual, you're running. So think about we're created a warehouse solution with Keon and NVIDIA. And so think about most warehouses today, right, still have lots of people, forklifts, you're running around. And we believe this solution will reduce manual labor by 50%, which is huge because in many countries in the world, you cannot get enough manual labor. Like there is a shortage of people for these jobs. It'll also reduce operating costs by 50%, we believe, and planning and optimization by 50%. So those are real, tangible business outcomes. But it's also super exciting because it's the first really huge scale of use of physical AI. In fact, I was with Jensen yesterday and we were doing an interview and he's like, this is the first of its kind. And it's using these, the capabilities of AI, but in the physical world, right, which allows you to, it senses gravity and objects and continuously learning. So safety is much better. It's actually amazing as I dug into it. I had no idea actually how, I always talk about supply chain being the next digital frontier, but when you really get into it, it's so not automated today, right? And yet, preparing for Black Friday is very, very different from a slow summer period, and all of that is still so manual. So real tangible outcomes, breakthroughs in how to bring AI to the physical world. And so it's quite exciting.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So it seems like this idea of physical AI, this is going to be really what we hear more and more about after the past 2 years were dominated more by the AI software. Is this something you're watching being deployed more on the physical AI level?
Yeah, in fact, I hope you all read our tech vision. It is our 25th anniversary. And one of the big trends we talk about are robotics, which I think are super exciting. And if you're walking the floor, you've seen there's so many different manifestations in health and wellness. I mean, it's really incredible what's happening there. And it opens up a whole new way of really helping society and businesses. So robotics is something absolutely to watch. There's a lot of work still to be done, but it's really a breakthrough moment for physical AI.
Yeah, I think this will be this year's CES will be the turning point for that. Before we're out of time, I want to take a step back and have you reflect a little bit on what you have learned by being able to work across all these different industries. And one thing that I find so fascinating is that you're able to take these learnings from the retail space and figure out what will be valuable to something in a different sector. Looking at how AI has been deployed and tech systems have been deployed across all of these different industries that Accenture works with, are there certain best practices or commonalities that you were surprised to find have a sort of a universal value?
I guess I would say I'm not surprised. And more than industries, we've always talked about people, process, technology. I think it's now people, process, technology, and data. And when I look across the industries, creating value comes down to those things. And I think that whoever came up with the people, process, technology, that we've always talked about, was very deliberate in putting people first, right? And I think, as we move forward, it does matter looking back, right? Is that we have always succeeded when we start with people and we understand how people will experience things. Because the best idea, as I used to call it, everything looks good in a PowerPoint, and you actually go take it. Start with people. And then process comes next, because the best technology, if you can't actually change the way you work, the technology can be super cool, but it'll never create value. And then data is the thing that most of us missed over the years, right? That was always the one that's super expensive, people didn't want to fix it, right? And it's something that now everybody pays attention to. So those are just sort of the basics of, as you sort of think about wherever you are in the world, whatever you do as a leader, when you think about, am I using AI, just kind of grounding yourselves in things that actually we've known for years, and it really doesn't matter which industry you're in. The last thing I just say is like, just kind of you as a person, right, it's a really exciting time. It can also feel like a scary time. And so I just want to maybe share it as we close. I have this little thing in my mudroom. I live in the DC area that my husband hung up. And he hung it up right the last couple of years before I became the global CEO. And it says, he likes really cheesy things, by the way, I'm just gonna give you that up front. But he won in this case, because it's super cheesy and I didn't want to hang it, but I live by it now. It says, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And it's a personal motto of mine as a leader and as a person, because when I'm feeling like, wow, like this is big and it's different, then I know I'm pushing my organization and myself. If you go to work every day and you never feel a little like, wow, can we really pull this off? Then most likely someone is passing you by, right? And as an individual, look, we're all gonna have to change. I'm changing the whole way I work and integrating AI, and sometimes it feels uncomfortable and like, am I getting it right? But that's where you're dreaming big enough. You're not gonna wake up, right, and find yourself individually passed by. So I wanted to share that with you because it's something that does inspire me on those moments when you sort of look at it and you come to a place, CES, and you think like, wow, the amount of change is tremendous.
And you're very optimistic.
I'm hugely optimistic. I feel so privileged to lead right now because the opportunities with AI, and we didn't even really talk about like some of the amazing things that are happening with drug discovery. If you read our tech division, we talk about a company that's like creating drugs now in half the time. What we can do for safety, what we can do to open up new things. I think it's amazing. And so we've got to be disciplined, right? That structure. And we've got to dream big to make sure that we use this tremendous technology to benefit everyone.
Well, that is a perfect note to end on. Julie Sweet, CEO of Accenture Global, thank you so much for joining
Thank you so much. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
I told you it would be interesting, eh? Very interesting, Accenture. Okay, thanks for joining. I'll be back in 5 for more keynotes. Je l'avais dit, hein, ça serait intéressant. Oh, on vient dans 5 minutes pour un